Ah, the start of a new managerial tenure. One innocent, beautiful and pure time. A clean slate, a world of possibilities. A fleeting moment in which hope, as the old saying goes, springs eternal. Often the appointment of a new manager gives teams a short-term boost, a shot in the arm through going back to basics, or because players are keen to show the new man what they can do, but not always. And sometimes it's just plain obvious that it's not going to work. These are Copper 90's 7 managerial appointments that were doomed from the start. Joe Kinnear, Newcastle. Put yourself in Joe Kinnear's shoes. You've had a few spells managing at small to mid-level English clubs, but have been out of football management for 4 years. Probably thinking of either packing it in or dropping down the pyramid, right? Wait, what's this? There's a nice man from Newcastle on the phone for me. This isn't a wind-up, is it? No. Amazing. Kinnear's time at St James's would come to be defined by his interactions with the media. He kicked off his spell in the North East with an incredible, expletive-laden rant at journalists in which he swore 52 times. Despite leaving the club with a win percentage of just 22%, he returned 2 years later for a spell as director of football, during which he called Johan Kabay Johan Kebab during an interview. Terry Connor, Wolves. If anything screams relegation more than promoting your assistant manager to the top job, would love to hear about it. Like a young man conscripted into the army, it's hard to imagine Connor being keen about taking over a struggling Wolves side, but a grim sense of obligation prevailed. The old gold were duly relegated, as good old Terry failed to pick up a win in his 13 games in charge and looked well and truly broken by the experience. Voice cracking during interviews, seemingly ready to burst into tears at any given moment. Since leaving Wolves, he's returned to Mick McCarthy's comforting, familiar bosom at Ipswich, exactly where he belongs. Paul Jewell, Derby. Claude Davis, Kenny Miller, Andy Griffin, Robbie Earnshaw. Yep, even with these signings, Derby County still struggled in the Premier League, and Billy Davies was dismissed with only one win to his name in late November of 2007-2008. Paul Jewell's stock was pretty high after keeping Wigan in the Premier League a year earlier, and he was chosen as the man to save their season, except he couldn't because they were truly rubbish. Jewell couldn't muster up an elusive second top flight win, and Derby were relegated with a record low of just 11 points. Looking back on it, taking on a completely doomed team when he was actually a fairly respected figure in English football, his name has been tarnished by association with the worst Premier League season of all time, and now looks to be out of the game for good after a disappointing spell at Ipswich. Oh well, he'll always have that dramatic last day at Bramall Lane. Gary Neville, Valencia. Ever thought you could do a better job than a manager? Sure, maybe you talk a good game, know your stuff. So does Gary Neville. Like, he really knows his stuff. Brilliant on the TV, isn't he? In the dugout, not so much. Brought in at Valencia with the club in crisis, sitting 9th in La Liga. He left them in 14th after just 3 league wins from 16 matches and a memorable 7-0 shellacking at the Nou Camp. It was always going to be a massive ask for a manager in his first job, taking over such a big club in such a bad way, with Spanish skills that could barely get him a paella and a San Miguel in a cafe. And in the end, it did turn out to be too much for old Nev, who was so traumatised by the experience that he reckons he might never return to management. Harry Redknapp, Birmingham. Oh, Birmingham. Was it not really obvious after QPR that old Redders had just about enough of this whole football business? Sure, it made sense to get him in for the end of last season, a couple of games to stay up, Harry will get him firing, but really, for a whole 46-game championship slog? Nah, it was never going to work, and unsurprisingly, all Redknapp did was sign a silly amount of players, moan a lot, get poor results, and get sacked. Not bad work if you can get it, I suppose. David Moyes, Manchester United. Your job now is to stand by our new manager. Those were Sir Alex Ferguson's parting words to the Old Trafford faithful as he left the dugout for one last time. Well, as it turns out, that would end up being easier said than done. To be fair to Moyesy, the size of the task at hand and his total and utter inability to take it wasn't apparent to a whole lot of people before it all started going south, but looking back on it, it was never going to work. After successive home defeats to Newcastle and Everton in that glorious period where anyone and everyone seemed to be getting their first win at Old Trafford in 20 or 30 years, Moyes came out with the following: we must improve in a number of areas, including passing, creating chances and defending. That's just not very Manchester United, is it? Felix Magath, Fulham. Has there ever been a bigger disparity between a club and a manager than Fulham and Felix Magath? Fulham. Lovely little Fulham with their quaint old ground in a very well-to-do part of West London. Everyone loves Fulham, don't they? Then Magath, small in stature at just 5'6", but big on discipline, hard work and fitness. A man so brutal, he was once described by one of his ex-players as the last dictator in Europe. Magath and his methods absolutely tanked at Fulham, as he took them down from the Premier League and oversaw a poor start to their 2014-15 Championship campaign, proving deeply unpopular with players and fans alike. Those were Copper 90's managerial appointments that were doomed to fail. Ever had that sinking feeling before a new manager had even taken charge of a game? Any that we missed? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe to Copper 90.